Hi, welcome to another video. So, Kimi just launched Kimi K2.5, and I did my initial testing, and it was really quite good, which was good to see. However, we now have the Agentic tests. I asked you guys if you want me to do the Agentic tests for it, and most of you said yes. So, here it is. First of all, it is still the same trillion parameter mixture of experts architecture that we saw in K2, with 32 billion parameters activated at any given time. But what's new is that this is now a native multimodal model. Yes, they finally added vision. They've trained it on about 15 trillion mixed visual and text tokens, which is massive. However, there are talks about how it seems like they have trained it on Claude's output, which actually lobotomizes one of its most community-loved capabilities, which was the writing capabilities. It was really good at writing and everything, but it is now lobotomized there. But it seems to be better at coding now, which is kinda good to see. I never used any model for writing, but Kimi was remarkably better than others. However, that seems to have been lobotomized now, which is not great to see. Anyway, let's talk about the agentic and coding capabilities as well. First of all, we ask it to make me an Expo movie tracker app using the TMDB API and local storage, and it does quite well. Looking at the code, it created a really solid structure. It set up a proper TMDB API service, implemented async storage for saving reviews locally, and even built a GitHub-style calendar view showing movie watch history. The way it approached this was pretty methodical. It first created a to-do list breaking down the tasks, then installed dependencies like async storage, Expo blur for transparency effects, and datefns for the calendar logic. The code quality is actually quite impressive, with proper TypeScript types, clean separation of concerns with separate files for the API service, storage service, and components. If we look at it, then it is quite good. You get the inner pages, you can add a review and see a calendar view of the movies watched, and everything like that, which is kinda good. It is quite a bit on par with what you'll get out of Opus, but it's much less expensive. I have seen that it can go on for long times, which is something that Kimi's previous version lacked. I was using it with Kilo, and it keeps going on for a while before ending, which is kinda good to see. It's really good. If we move on to the next question, then it is about a Go-based terminal calculator using BubbleT. The code here is really clean. It started by initializing the Go module and installing BubbleT and LipGloss for styling. What I liked is that it created a proper model struct with all the calculator state, including current input, previous value, current operator, and history. It implemented a full button grid layout that looks like a classic calculator with proper styling. The buttons are color-coded with numbers in dark gray, operators in orange, and action buttons like clear and backspace in medium gray. It handles all the edge cases too, like division by 0 and multiple decimal points. The whole thing compiled successfully, and the cost was only about 5 cents. If we look at it, then it is actually pretty good to see. You can see that it is actually responsive to the terminal size, and it works pretty well, which is really good to see. Then we've got the Godot game. Here I give it a basic boilerplate game and ask it to implement a step calculator that tracks steps in a bar at the top. This is kinda simple, but also kinda hard at the same time, and it kinda nailed it. The bar was visible and everything, and it worked quite well, which is pretty great to see. Looking at how it approached this, it first analyzed the existing player code and the global.gd script to understand the project structure. Then it created a proper to-do list with 8 items covering step tracking, progress bar UI, life bar system, fall damage, jump health cost, and settings configuration. The code properly integrates with the existing player physics and tracks steps based on movement distance. It also implemented configurable step targets that can be changed in the settings menu. The health bar responds to fall damage, calculated from the fall velocity, which is a nice touch. Then there's the Svelte app. I asked it to build me a Kanban app that uses SQLite to save the data and just works. So, it did it pretty well. Like, it's really good. The best from any open model, while almost finishing second in front of Opus, which is really cool to see. The Svelte app used SvelteKit with better Sklyte 3 for persistence, and it was a complex Kanban board with authentication, drag and drop, and offline support. The code structure is solid with proper TypeScript types throughout. It set up prepared statements for all the database queries, which is good practice. It did run into some SQLite syntax issues with the datetime function, where it used double quotes instead of single quotes, but it caught that and fixed it pretty quickly. The authentication system uses HTTP only session cookies, which is the secure way to do it. One thing I noticed is that it handles the board, column, and card relationships properly with foreign keys and cascade deletes. Then there's the Nuxt app, and it just doesn't work. I tried fixing it as well, but it kind of fails. Looking at the task history, it was a Stack Overflow style queue and asite, which is pretty complex. It tried to use Drizzle ORM with SQLite, but ran into multiple TypeScript errors in the seed script. The schema had users, questions, answers, comments, votes, and tags with proper relationships, but when it tried to run the seed, it hit issues with the SQL syntax and type mismatches. The password hash field was missing in the user insert, and it had problems with the SQL template literal not being imported properly. It kept trying to fix things, but would introduce new errors. This is one of those cases where Nuxt plus Drizzle, plus all the other requirements like SSE, I18N, and FTS5 search was just too much complexity stacked together. Secondly, I also tried the Tauri app, and that also failed. Same thing happened with the OpenCode repo as well. Opus was also not like perfect in these, but after some finagling, it kinda did work with Opus. This one is more rigid. Looking at the leaderboards, Kimi K2.5 with Kilo code scored 69.0, which puts it in 5th place. Opus 4.5 with Kilo code is still at the top with 77.1, followed by Opus 4.5 UltraThink with Verdant at 75.1. Then we have Gemini 3 Pro Preview with Kilo code at 71.4 and CodeBuff at 69.7. So Kimi is right there in the competitive range. The interesting thing is the cost difference. Kimi K2.5 has an average cost of only 50 cents per task compared to Opus at $6.86. The total cost for all 7 evaluations was just $3.51 for Kimi versus $48 for Opus. That's like a 14 times cost reduction for only about 10% less performance, which is actually a really good trade-off depending on your use case. The thing with Opus is that I have seen that it is not like just a one-shot model. It is a very in-depth model. Like, if it does something wrong, then you can get that fixed by prompting it in the right direction. Kimi is more rigid for sure. If you stick with TS and JS, then it is actually on par with Opus from what it seems. It does indeed take a lot longer than Opus to get things completed, but it is just like Opus because it can control the browser tool as well. So, like in Kilo, It easily controlled the browser use tool and checked its work, which is awesome. One thing that really stood out is how it uses the browser tools for verification. During the movie tracker task, it would build the app and then actually open it in the browser to check if things rendered correctly. It takes screenshots, analyzes the output, and makes corrections based on what it sees. This self-verification loop is something that makes agentic coding so powerful. It's not just blindly writing code and hoping it works. It builds, tests, verifies visually, and iterates. This is the same pattern that Opus uses, and Kimi handles it really well. I am waiting for it to get available on Verdant as well. That way, I can give it a ton of tasks in different repos and just let it run in the background. I use Verdant a lot for getting things done in background, and it has all the code review stuff built in, which makes it super good. So, yeah, it should get available there by today or tomorrow, I believe. In terms of how it functions, Kimi K2.5 takes a very structured approach. It almost always creates a to-do list first, which helps it stay organized on complex tasks. The model uses about 32 billion active parameters from its trillion parameter mixture of experts architecture, so it's efficient at inference while still being capable. The cost is incredibly low at around 50 cents per agentic task on average. For comparison, running the same tasks on Opus would cost you closer to $7 each. If you're doing a lot of agentic coding, those savings add up fast. The new vision capabilities also mean you can have it analyze screenshots and UI elements directly, which opens up a lot of possibilities for testing and verification workflows. I think that it is a really good model, probably the best agentic model, and on par with Opus and GLM for me. I'd have to do a bit more testing, but the vision capabilities just make it an awesome deal for sure. Overall, it's pretty cool. Anyway, share your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel. You can also donate via Super Thanks option or join the channel as well and get some perks. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.